Alright, so this video right here is about Diddy's father, Melvin Combs.
Drug dealers anonymous.
My father's name was Melvin Combs. Melvin's son, Sean Combs. My father was a hustler. He was a drug dealer. He was a hustler.
I'm a Harlem boy. No disrespect to anybody. That's where my mom was from. That's where my father's from. That's where my father died at. That's where I was born.
This is Harlem. Welcome to America's backyard.
I feel like Texas is America's backyard.
Melvin Earl Combs was born on April 15th, 1938 in Harlem, New York. He was born to his
Florida
father, Isaac Combs Jr., and mother, Helen Combs. Melvin was well educated and he served in the United States Air Force. Once the Vietnam War ended in 1973, the soldiers didn't come home to any parades or jobs. Most soldiers was left unemployed and some turned to the streets, which was exactly what happened in Melvin's case. During this time, heroin was taking over the streets of Harlem, and you either sold or was a user. Melvin being a hustler, he became a drug dealer.
The United States ain't doing nothing for us, man. We busted our ass. We went over there to an army to kill, and 99% of us got killed, and we didn't get nothing for it. They give us a piece of paper that says to us, we're a Vietnam veteran, and we can get disability, and we can get this, and we can get a job, and we ain't got nothing.
He would hit the streets of Harlem, dealing heroin, and would start to make a name for himself. He was an associate of the notorious New York drug kingpin Nicky Barnes and was rumored to be Nicky Barnes' muscle and hitman. In 1972, Barnes formed a council, a 7-man organized crime syndicate that controlled a big part of the heroin trade in Harlem. Barnes led the council into an international drug trafficking ring in partnership with the Italian-American Mafia until his arrest in 1977. Barnes was sentenced to life in prison, but eventually became a federal informant that led to the collapse of the council in 1977.
And he's putting people behind bars, helping to make cases for the feds.
There is no justice in terms of that. Ah, man. I mean, 8 years ago, Nick was the scum of the earth in terms of court, being in the courtroom in Judge Worker's court. And then 3 years ago, he became Robin Hood because he was telling him.
Melvin was also friends
say New York has the worst type of rats, but there's two types of rats.
With the notorious New York City drug kingpin, Frank Lucas.
Me and Melvin Combs were good friends. We were good friends. We did a lot of business together. Of course, it was not a legal business, but we did a lot of business together.
Frank Lucas operated
in
Harlem during the late 1960s and early 1970s. He was known for cutting out the middleman in the drug trade and buying his heroin directly from the source in the Golden Triangle in Southeast Asia. In 1976, Lucas was convicted of drug trafficking and sentenced to 70 years in prison, but he had his time reduced after becoming an informant.
Bro, how is he getting drugs from Southeast Asia? Like, how do you get that connection? How do you definitely can't speak that language, whatever the language is. That's a crazy connection. Southeast
Washington
Asia?
portrayed Frank Lucas in his biofilm American Gangster, and Jay-Z did the soundtrack.
You gonna keep that hat on all night? You don't miss a fight. You paid for it.
Frank Lucas is cool, but I ain't trying to snitch. I'ma follow the rules no matter how much time I'ma get.
With friends like Nicky Barnes and Frank Lucas, Melvin had to be heavy in those streets. But while in those streets, he would find love. He fell in love with Janice, who was a model and a teacher assistant. The two would get married and they would welcome their first child, a baby girl, Keisha Combs. Even though Melvin was in those streets heavy, he was a family man and he made sure his household was taken care of. Years later, they would welcome their second child, a baby boy, Sean Combs, born November 4th, 1969.
I thought he was an only child. I did not know he had a sister. Keisha Combs. I did not know that.
Who the world will get to know as P. Diddy.
I told you that we won't stop till we back cruising through Harlem, these old blocks.
The Combs was one big happy family, but that happiness would be short-lived. On one fateful day, Melvin was on a drug deal and he was misidentified as an informant and was gunned down while sitting in his car on Central Park West. Melvin passed away January 26, 1972. He was only 33 years old and P. Diddy was only 3.
Dang.
He was killed when I was 3 years old. I don't have like a lot of memories of my father. You know, they say, you know, you can't miss something you never had. So that.
See, y'all be making fun of them young bulls for wearing them ski masks, but imagine you get gunned down just because somebody thought you were someone else. Like, you don't even have to have ops. You could just look like someone.
That's only a little ways right, you know. There's definitely been times as I've gotten older that I've missed my father. And, you know, his presence not being there, having somebody not to ask, like, manly advice. And just things that you would ask your father. Also things that you would celebrate with him that would make him proud.
Melvin's murder was never solved, but per Frank Lucas, the guy who killed Melvin didn't last long on the streets and he got what he deserved.
I was sorry to see what happened to him. That shocked the hell out of me. And the guy who did it, I'm glad he got what he got.
After Melvin died, Janice left Harlem and moved to Mount Vernon, New York, to ensure her kids was brought up in a safe environment. Janice worked 3 jobs to provide for her 2 kids. Her hard work paid off. She kept her kids on track, and P. Diddy would eventually attend Howard University. It was when he was at Howard he learned the truth about his dad.
This man did not grow up in no Harlem, bro. What, like, why does he act like he grew up in Harlem if he grew up in Mount Vernon and then he went to Howard? This man did not spend a day in the street. He moved out of Harlem when he was 3 years old.
Growing up, his mom would tell him that his dad died in the car crash to protect him. Diddy always felt like there was more to the story, and he did some research on his dad.
My world was changed here at Howard. On my second day of school, I learned something that would change the course of my life forever.
This guy's a fake gangster. I just realized that.
I don't talk about this often. I was raised by a single mother in Harlem.
No, you weren't.
My dad, Mr. Melvin Combs, died when I was 3 years old. My mother always told me that he died in a car accident. But something about that, it just didn't feel right. Something was in my soul that was telling me otherwise. So as soon as I got here, I went to the library and I did some research. I used the microfilm at Founders to search through all the newspapers. And when I typed in my father's name and the day he died, I read in the Amsterdam News that he had been murdered and a drug deal going bad. Right there in that library, I realized there's nothing greater than a mother's love and desire to protect her child.
That hustle Melvin had for the streets, Diddy had that same hustle, but instead of using it in the streets, Diddy decided to use it in the music business.
I decided to embrace the entrepreneurial spirit of my father, but in an honest way. God bless you, Melvin Combs. I could feel you right next to me. But in an honest way, in a legal way, by earning, scraping, working harder, believing in myself.
Diddy would eventually start his own label, Bad Boys Records, and introduce the world to artists Faith Evans, Craig Mack, Mace, 112, Shine, Black Rob, and the notorious B.I.G., aka Biggie Smalls. Some would say Biggie was the greatest rapper of all time, but his reign on top will be cut short. He will also suffer the same fate as Melvin and was gunned down while sitting in the car.
A star in the often brutal world of gangster rap has been gunned down. This time it was Notorious B.I.G. ABC's Anderson Cooper has the story.
The rapper known as Biggie Smalls was shot several times as he sat in his Chevy Suburban early this morning outside the Peterson Automotive Museum in Los Angeles. Smalls had been attending a party honoring winners of the Soul Train Music Awards, at which he made an appearance Friday night.
What's up, Cali?
After the shooting, Smalls was taken to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, where he was pronounced dead.
Not getting to know his dad, Diddy still missed him, and he wanted to know more about his dad. So he reached out to one person who had that information and was once Melvin's friend, and that person was Frank Lucas.
He wanted me to tell him about his father, so I come over there and I told him something about his father, but I didn't give him the whole story because it impressed me. He just asked me cash, and I told him cash, but if it impressed me, I would have told him the whole story.
About his dad?
Yeah, well, all I know, but I didn't do that because it didn't impress him. If he act like he really wanted to know, he act like it was just another thing, so I had to go.
Right.
Melvin was a true gangster and was well respected in the streets of Harlem. He did what he had to do to survive and to provide for his family.
Can we stop sanctifying these, this guy sold heroin to other African Americans who were down on their luck. He took advantage of people who were in a worse situation than him and got them in an even worse situation and profited off of that. Why are we trying to make him into some saint and put doves on his gravestone? Why did y'all do that?
Which ended up costing him his life. To Melvin, the original King Combs, rest in peace.
No, don't rest in peace, bro. Don't wish no rest in peace for drug dealers. Y'all gotta cut that out, okay? Find better heroes. Anyway, man, let me know what you thought about that video. Leave a comment below. Subscribe if you want to. That's all I got for now. I'm out. Peace.
Bop, 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 bop,